Aloha and welcome to ThinkTech, where we're raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. As part of the ThinkTech series, this is your show, Global Connections, and I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. Today, I'm delighted to welcome some guests who've come to us from far, far away, from Scandanavia. We're coming to you live today from Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown Honolulu. And today, joining me are three students that are passing through, if you will, participating in a very interesting program known as the Pacific Crossroads. This is part of a new Danish study center here at Hawaii Pacific University, where we're hosting groups of young Danes and a few Swedes that we've thrown in there for good measure. Joining me today are Sophie Stinson Nielsen and Elin Jacobsen and Simone Christine Pignot, who's Sophie from Denmark, Elin from Sweden, and Simone from Denmark as well. And first, I just want to remind our listeners that we broadcast live on the internet at 2 and at 4 p.m. every weekday. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.tv as well as Spreaker.com. And if you'd like links to any of these, please visit our website at www.thinktechhawaii.com. If you'd like to join us here in the studio at our gallery downtown here, please write to j@thinktechhawaii.com. So again, we're joined today by some young Scandinavians. I'm very happy to welcome you. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to a conversation, learn a little bit more about what you're doing here, some of your own reflections, and maybe if you could just give us an initial snapshot. I mean, we'll talk about your program, but tell us initially just a little bit about yourselves, what you do and where you're from in your respective countries. So perhaps, Sophie, can you give us?
I'm from the north of Denmark.
Denmark.
So I have a very special accent in Danish. And well, I worked for the last couple of months since I graduated in a pet store.
Oh.
But there actually aren't no pets, so...
But you have a store.
Yeah,
okay.
We have a store.
And, well, thank you. So you're the northern part of Denmark, okay, which is basically the mainland portion, Jutland as it's known, right? And tell us again, Elin, about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Elin Jacobsen, and I'm from Sweden, in Stockholm. And I graduated this summer, so I work now in a couple of months in a Tele2 store. It's we sell telephones and mobile things, so it's funny.
Excellent. And yourself, tell us, Sophie.
Sophie?
Simone, I'm so sorry. Sophie. Simone.
Yes, my name is Simone. I'm from Copenhagen in Denmark, the capital of our country. And I graduated this summer as well, so I've been working also. So for this trip, I worked at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah.
Very well. And so, as you both, all three of you have indicated, you're recent graduates of high schools, and you're kind of in a transition period in your lives, young adults, and basically you've now taken the opportunity to participate in what is an interesting program that brings you across the world from your home. And tell us a little bit about this program. Initially, you began and left your homeland, but you started in New York City. Is that right?
Yeah.
So tell us what you've been doing, I guess, in that first part, and then we'll talk about your program here in Hawaii.
Well, first of all, we were settled in rooms of about, the girls were 12.
Yeah, 12 girls in a room.
Yeah, and then we were one room with 6 guys, me and another girl.
Okay.
So a mixed room.
Yeah.
And we saw Rockefeller Center.
Yeah, we were up there at the top, looking over the city.
There was a lot of shopping.
And sightseeing, and basically absorbing the big city, the big megalopolis. Wow.
Yeah.
And we were on a Sex and the City tour.
Yeah.
So the 6 guys who were with us, they didn't really like that. No.
Yeah, but us
So you
girls-
have the whole group, just to make clear, you have 40 young men and women like yourself. Most of them are women, about 34?
34 women,
34
6
and then
guys.
6
guys.
men. So I don't know if it's lucky for them or unlucky for you, I don't know.
I think
And out of that group of 40, you have mostly Danes, correct?
Yeah.
I think,
We're 6 Swedes.
6 Swedes that are just thrown in to kind of mix it up a little bit. But otherwise, it's, obviously you're all Scandinavians, you share some sense, and we'll speak a little bit about what it is that distinguishes you. You come from, neighboring countries, but and yet you have your own identity, your own culture that has its own differences. Now, after visiting New York, and of course, part of your program is an opportunity to basically learn about other parts of the world, get away from your normal routine, gain some knowledge of culture and American, in this case, American culture and society, right? So you've spent initially several weeks in New York City. You got to see the big, place that is. Next thing you know, you're on a plane and you find yourself way out here in Honolulu, Hawaii. And maybe give us a quick snapshot. What are some immediate impressions and how they might either differ from what you expected? Have you anything you can share about what you've seen so far?
The people, they're so kindly, so nice and relaxed.
Okay.
In Stockholm and in New York, everyone is so stressed.
Yeah.
I came here and it was like, amazing.
A bit more relaxing. Okay. What other impressions? Anything else?
The heat.
Yeah.
Really, it was so hot when we got off the airplane with all of our clothes from New York. We sweated like pigs.
And it was like 9 o'clock, so I was surprised that it was that hot.
The humidity, and of course the weather does vary for us a little, not too much, but you happen to arrive in the recent past when we've had a bit of a little warmer than normal. We haven't had the traditional trade winds, as we call them, that will be coming soon, and they should be arriving any day. And again, maybe just to turn attention now, we have this program that has brought you here, and we've hosted now several groups of Danish students. They've come, as well as a few Swedes. They've come in part to get immersed in cultural studies, but also a couple areas to kind of help your own skills in writing and just professional development. And I wonder, from your vantage point, you've made a decision to leave your home country for something like this, and what is it that interests you, and how, maybe tell us individually what sparked your attention when you learned about this opportunity. Why would you do it? You could stay in your pet shop, or you could have stayed working selling your phones, but no, you made a decision to do this. So tell us about your own stories. What is in it for you?
Well, I've been traveling a lot through America with my own family. I've never been to Hawaii, and I thought, why don't just go here and see what that is? It's very different from all the other cities I've been to. The kind of big cities, LA, New York, Chicago, stuff like that, Las Vegas. So to kind of experience America in another way. And also we have like a sports program I'm very interested in when we are done here at the Pacific University. So that's mainly why I wanted to go.
Excellent. Tell us again maybe a little bit about your own stories and what caught your attention. Why what made you decide?
Like Hawaii, it's like the dream island. And I've always wanted to go here because on movies it's like amazing, and I didn't thought it would be this awesome in real life. But I love it here, and it's a good adventure. I want to learn a lot of English and make some new friends.
Excellent, great. And so the other part, and we'll speak to some of these reflections, I mean, we are, of course, a mixture of cultures here. We have, on one hand, a foundation of Polynesian and Native Hawaiian culture, but many other groups that have come here, and then somehow it is part of the U.S., and I'll be curious to hear some of your reflections about that. But let's hear anything you can share, Sophie, about your decision to come, and what inspired you?
Well, I guess it was very impulsive, because my mom, she talked about always wanting to have a wedding in Hawaii, and she's always dreamt of coming here. And I just thought, we've been so many places, so I didn't really want to kind of miss out on the opportunity of going to a country like this.
And for the young individuals that you are in your countries, it's not uncommon to have this opportunity to sort of take a little time and adventure and see the world, right? I mean, of course, your descendants have a long heritage of seafaring and adventuring in their own way, but today, in the form of the modern countries that you come from, it's just a common thing to get out, see the world, travel, see Europe. So it's not, you're not crazy to do this. You're just adventurous. You're going maybe a little farther than some of the others, and then I commend you on that. I want to speak a little bit briefly about, you've given you a snapshot of what inspired you to come, but in your own mind, you had certain perceptions, certain ideas. Perhaps you mentioned you've done some travel before in the U.S. What I'll do is I'd like to propose that we come back in a short break from now just to kind of hear more of your own story about what you've seen now that you've come to the U.S. in terms of the culture. So let me suggest we're going to take a very short break right now. I'm Carlos Juarez, and this is Global Connections in the ThinkTech series. We'll be talking with our guests coming to us from Sweden and Denmark in just a few minutes, so stay tuned for more on the story.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel, founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. We are a digital media nonprofit that covers things that matter to tech, energy, diversification, globalism, and progress for our state, the state of Hawaii. We broadcast on community television and on Oceanic Cable Channel 16. We also stream our shows and interviews live on the internet as both radio and video, and of course we post them here on YouTube. We collaborate with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association to present monthly luncheon programs on subjects of interest to the business community, and we write for the Honolulu Star Advertiser. ThinkTech works hard to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check out our website, thinktechhawaii.com, and come to our YouTube channel, ThinkTech Hawaii. We hope you support our mission and that you like our work. I'm Jay Fidel. Mahalo.
And aloha, we're back and we're live and we're ThinkTech, and this is the Global Connection Show from the ThinkTech Hawaii series. I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. We're joined today by three young Scandinavians who've come from far away, and they've joined us here in the studio in downtown Honolulu. Sophie Nielsen, Simone and Elin Jacobsen from Denmark, Sweden, and Denmark. And, you know, I want to turn to maybe have you share with us some thoughts before you made the decision to come and be part of this study tour that you are, and we'll continue talking about that. But you must have had certain impressions, certain either stereotypes or expectations of what you were going to see in the U.S. Some of those perhaps have been true, and maybe tell us a little bit about, you know, what did you expect to see, and then maybe has what you've seen so far, whether in New York and now in Hawaii, have they been realized? Is it confirmed what you expected, or have there been any surprises? So any of you that wish to?
Yeah, I thought the New Yorkers were much more busy actually than they were. They were very friendly and so easy to talk to. And here I thought there was a lot of surfer guys. I haven't really
You haven't
seen
found them
yet.
yet. They're out on the
I'm
surf.
looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, you're seeing just average people that aren't surfing somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But other folks that go to the beach and do some sports activities like beach volley, I love it. Definitely want to do more of that.
Okay. So anything you could share about, again, your impressions,
Before
your stereotypes?
we went to New York, I heard that people are pretty rude there. So, but when I went there, then everyone was kind and friendly, and they helped us find roads and stuff. So I was surprised.
Yeah. So you kind of came expecting that rudeness, but found that, hey, people are actually
They
pretty
are
decent and
actually nice.
pleasant.
Yeah.
Anything you could share?
And we always hear that people on Hawaii is very polite and friendly, and they definitely are. But for some of us from Denmark and Sweden, it can be a little bit frightening, because in Denmark you don't really talk to people that way, but it's really nice.
Okay. Oh, very good to hear. And, you know, maybe turn for a moment now to just talk about the kind of thing you're doing here. This program is one that basically we've been hosting groups of students like yourselves that have come, usually in, we might call it a leap year, or maybe it's, you know, you finish your high school studies, you're making a transition in life, decisions about what your next steps are going to be, and this is an opportunity for you to kind of develop some, you know, I don't know, some thinking, some, you know, skills. But specifically to your program, you're also then doing a series of workshops, learning about different things. So tell us what is on your plate, or what is it you're learning about or studying about? What kind of things?
Mostly, I think English, Hawaiian culture. Just learning to be more confident when speaking English. We have a hula lesson also, and food tasting, stuff like that. I think a lot of just like group discussions in the class to kind of practice.
Excellent. Yeah. Anything else you could add, or?
Yesterday we was on this Waikiki tour on the Waikiki beach, and it was fun to see places, just not the beach and the surfing boys. It was like, this happened here and this happened here. So a little bit
in
of
some ways,
culture.
learning about the history, the culture, the place itself, and this is so important. Any place you live or go, you get a better understanding of where you are by learning some of that story. Because of course, like every place, we have a story here. You know, this was a place that, you know, had a certain group of people, and many others came, and it has enriched us in different ways. It's a very complex history as well. Some of your countries, for the most part, are much more homogeneous, we would say. People are more or less similar. There's some changes, and particularly in Sweden, you have a very high percentage of foreign-born, much more than in Denmark, I'm quite aware of. But Hawaii is ultimately one of the interesting puzzles, a laboratory of cultures, because there's no single group that is a majority. You have peoples that come particularly from Asia, but even Europe and other areas. I happen to be Latino, Hispanic myself, and we're here. We have to remind people as well, and we're a growing part of the population. But it is this mixture that is both fascinating, but it also, it's a challenge in its own way, because everyone has to find their space and has to mix in. And just as when people come to your countries, it helps you to learn the story of what the history is and what society is like. And in many ways, you're doing the same here. You're learning about our story, and you can't come here to Hawaii and appreciate it unless you know some of that history, some of the context, right? Maybe speaking more broadly, about Hawaii as part of the United States. We are one of the U.S. states. We have to remind our other mainland states sometimes. But from your impressions coming here, do you see us as part of the U.S., or is it totally different, or are there areas that you could say, yes, you're in the U.S. in some way?
I personally think it's very different from other places I've been. I don't think there are much similarities. Also, the food you eat here is like very Asian.
I think that as well. I've been to Florida and New York before we went there, and I also think it's really different. It's like there is something in the atmosphere here.
Yeah.
It's so relaxed.
Yeah.
It's the aloha spirit.
Yeah.
That's true, and certainly for those, again, most of us have come from somewhere at some time, and yet we come together and share some sense of that. What makes this a particularly different place. You also spoke about, other than learning just culture and history and these things, you're also helping to improve some of your language skills. Now, it's always the case, I'm impressed myself as a professor. I have a lot of students that come from many areas, and for reasons that continue to baffle me, you have good language skills to begin with, and all of you are obviously very fluent. You have opportunities here to improve those and to sharpen them and, refine them, if you will. But tell me a little bit about your own language learning. You grew up obviously speaking Danish, speaking Swedish, but you learn English at an early age. When does this start for you in your schools?
When you're 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Yeah, fourth grade.
Elementary school.
Yeah.
And it's like the basics, and when you start the gymnasium, we say in Sweden, then it's like the higher level.
Yeah.
But it continues as you go on through school.
Yeah, it does all the way through, and also we watch a lot of American and English television, so we learn through that as well.
Yes.
So it's not really that hard for us, I think.
Well, and again, the reality for different countries in Europe, it's not quite the same. Many others don't. If you're typically from Italy or Romania or Portugal, you're not going to learn English as an 8-year-old for majority. And the other challenge I think I see in many other countries in Europe is they often will translate a lot of the culture, film and television, so you don't hear it in the native English language, and I think that goes a long way when you're exposed to it more and you hear it. And I guess for small countries, and particularly in the case of Denmark, a small state, you have a challenge if everybody is suddenly speaking English and you're speaking English to your neighbors. Do you have a fear of losing your own culture, your own identity? Have you ever come across ideas that somehow you're becoming too Americanized or too English language or things like that?
I haven't, but I know my parents have thought about it. Because we use a lot of English words in our language as well, such as jeans, computer, all that sorts of things. They come from you guys.
Yes.
And I think we are very inspired by you, because everything happens over here and then it spreads out to the rest of the world as an inspiration. But I think definitely we have our own culture.
And this is again true whether you're from Scandinavia or Africa, Asia, Latin America. People ultimately want to preserve what makes their own culture important, or you want to value it. And I'm curious if you could give us a quick sense of what is it that defines your identity? Let's say the two of you on the outside are Danes, and there's something in common, even though you have a funny accent, you come from another area, and you have your own differences internally, but there's something that binds you together, a shared history, a shared identity. If you had to describe, what is it to be Danish? What does that mean?
To party, I guess.
Party.
I guess
Every
that's
weekend.
what we're known for in the rest of the world, to drink much.
The happiest
very much.
country.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
very
also.
happy. Very happy country. What is it to be as like a Dane?
What does it mean to be Danish?
I
Now,
don't know.
we're fortunate that we have a Swede in the house, and so we've got Elin. From your vantage point, and maybe the same question: is there a sense of identity? What does it mean for you to be Swedish? Do you have a sense of your history, or I don't know?
We love the meatballs.
Yeah. We don't think of Danish meatballs. We think of Danish ham or bacon or something like that, but or perhaps pastries. But you've got the meatballs. That's true.
I think we're very proud to be from Denmark. We are very fortunate.
Yeah.
Not a lot of like poor people. You don't see that in Denmark.
So part of it is that the society itself is one that you have a very egalitarian, a very good standard of living, and everybody has
the health
opportunities.
system.
the health system.
But even more than that, I mean, those things you could say, look, the Finns have it, other places, but there's something in your own history, your own identity that you have to be proud of. And again, every country does it in their own way. I mean, you have certain national icons, national things that you say party. Well, that's okay, that's fun, but that probably isn't enough. It's something else. It's something deeper than that makes you Danish.
History could be like the Vikings, both for Denmark and Sweden.
Yeah.
And what about from your vantage point? I mean, this would be a different question. From your point as a neighbor in Sweden, what would you describe as the Danes? How are they?
They talk very funny.
They have a funny.
I can actually don't understand what they say when they're talking Danish. So we talk English to each other.
Yeah. And from an outsider, I can look at the two languages and say, oh, you've got some similarities, and it looks like similar to me. But clearly, you've got enough differences where you have to either spend a lot of time, and of course, if you live, let's say, in Malmo and you have more interaction with Copenhagen, you might be more exposed to that, or
exactly.
and so on. But maybe more the more direct point I would ask you, Elin, if you had to describe what do many Swedes, how would they describe Danes? What is their character, their personality?
It's a hard question.
Are they happy? Are they?
They are very happy and they're like open.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that Danish are a little bit crazy, but they're kind and friendly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and vice versa. What about from the perspective of Denmark? What are those Swedes? Are they less happy? Are they more? Their alcohol's more expensive. We know that. But how? Any other stereotypes you could speak to, or impressions?
I think I've heard from the guys in Denmark that they think the Swedish girls are much prettier.
That's a game. They're just saying that to kind of make you feel
blonde
a little.
hair, I think, but that's also in Denmark.
I think my parents, when we're on vacation and Swedish people are at the same hotel, they always say that the Swedes are loud.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, these things they can often be oversimplified or generalized, and yet, you're also both part of a very important phenomenon happening now. For the last 20 years, but even deeper than that. You are essentially part of this growing European Union, bringing together today 28 countries. You're both members, and let me see my math really quickly. Denmark joined quite early in 1973. It began under what was then the European Economic Community, but Sweden would join in '95 to join the European Union a little bit later. But that's just irrelevant. The main point is that you are part of this club, and yet you are first Danes and Swedes, and yet you're also Europeans, you're EU citizens. And I'm curious from that question, I am a professor and I teach a lot about the EU and what it means and, the interdependence and so on. But what does it mean to you to be part of this European Union, this bigger club? In what ways is it part of your lives?
It doesn't really mean very much to us. I guess we don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I guess if we were asked some questions about it, we wouldn't really be able to answer them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've got to take my class to learn about it.
Yeah, totally.
But it is, I mean, on a very fundamental level, what it mainly means is that your economies are more interconnected. There's a, easier ability to move, goods and services and products, and even working. I mean, today you can move in ways that, 20, 30, 50 years ago, it was not as easy. You had to kind of stay in your own national economies. But even deeper than that, what the EU is now more engaged in is creating laws that you may not realize, but more and more the rules and laws of your countries are EU laws. You're adopting more more harmonization, more common social policy, environmental policy, et cetera, et cetera. Even in most countries, monetary, however, interestingly, both Denmark and Sweden have not adopted the euro currency, which is it's only used in about 17 or 18 of the 28 members. So this is, I would say, part of your own national pride that you want to kind of keep a little bit, something that makes you distinct, and also at least for the countries and their economies, it's a way of also managing your own fiscal and monetary policy. But that you'll have to come and learn more about in my class. Well, I'm excited to just again learn about your both your reaction, your impressions coming here, and I guess what I'd like to turn to is maybe what does it mean to be a young person now growing up in this age? I could say I would be in your shoes maybe 30 years ago, and it was a different world. I mean, we had the beginning of the sort of very, if you will, the more sophisticated internet-connected world today. That wasn't the case 30 years ago. And yet it helps facilitate a lot of things. It brings the world closer to you. And, we live in a world in which we often use this term globalization, and you're an example of that. Somehow you've been connected and made yourself here. But what does it mean in your own mind, to be part of this generation now? I mean, different from your parents, different from your grandparents. And any reflections?
We have a lot more opportunities. For example, I know my mom, when she chose to go to high school, she could only go two ways, mathematical and language. And nowadays we can choose all sorts of things, which makes it more, I think, exciting to go to school, but also kind of hard to choose what you want to do in the future, because there's so many things you can do now. But also, it gives me the opportunity to come here. So there's down parts and
And how might you describe, again, living in this new world, maybe think of yourselves compared to what your parents or grandparents, the world that they lived in?
Well, it's we have the internet, and we can find anything there. So, like Simone said, it's a lot of opportunities, and but sometimes you feel that there are too many opportunities, so it's hard to choose. And but a trip like this is you can go and think of what you want to do later and get some impressions and inspiration.
Anything you care to add?
I think that the traveling part is the most exciting about now. That it's normal for us in Denmark and Sweden to go travel to foreign places. Our parents didn't really do that. They had to put a lot of thinking into it. So
just more mobility, more ease, and the cost and the transactions, everything is a lot easier. And that you have to appreciate. It was not the world that many of us and certainly other generations had. So it's a changing world. Well, we're going to take another very quick short break here and continue this great conversation. We're joined today by Sophie, Simone, and Elin, who come to us from Denmark and Sweden, and we're part of the Global Connections series here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll take another short break and come back in just a moment, so stay tuned.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
And we're back, we're live, and we're Global Connections in the ThinkTech series. I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. We're joined today by three Scandinavians, Sophie, Simone, and Elin from Denmark, Sweden, and Denmark. And, just get back to our conversation. I mean, you are part of a group of students that are coming here, learning a little bit more about culture, about history, about yourselves, because I think I always like to say, when you see the world, not only do you see that, but it forces you to rethink your own values, what's important, what you miss from back home, things that you thought might be important perhaps are not, or things you didn't realize. Perhaps on that note, I might ask you, now that you've been away for a little while, what do you miss most about back home? Or, I mean, is it food, is it family, is it places or things to do? Or anything that you can say you miss?
Apart from my family a little bit, we have something called rugbrød. It's like very heavy bread.
Yeah,
Okay, a very
with a
dense,
lot of-
dark bread that's
Yeah.
hard to find here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good.
I'll
Miss
also,
it.
I'll also say the food mostly.
Yeah.
Family and friends and so on will come in.
Along the way.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything you could add? Anything?
It's like I'm gonna miss my family and food and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But
Yeah.
the candy in Sweden, it's like the best candy ever.
Oh yeah, you don't have licorice.
That's right. It's not as common here.
No,
That's true. Or what we
we
call
like
licorice is not as good as
No,
the quality that
it's
you
not.
have. Yeah. Well, these little things, I mean, they seem silly and fun, and yet what I want to say is that as well, when you spend more time like this going away and coming back, you also realize things that are very important. Maybe it's family, maybe it's certain foods on one hand, but that can come and go because at the same time you might be exposed to new food, something you've never tried, and you begin to appreciate a larger palette there. The other thing I want to maybe turn to briefly is, you're part of basically a group of students here that are learning, to improve your skills, learning to think outside the box, as we often say. Get outside of your comfort zone, the world that you know most of your life, and getting out of that, coming here helps you realize the importance of what matters. And what I really mean there is, you're in the early stages of your own lives, and as you continue back, you're going to make decisions about what to do next, what kind of work, maybe schooling, what you'd like to do, and what would you say are some of the kind of skills that you need to operate in this world? I mean, the world that, again, maybe you don't think about, but it's a world of very changing technologies and new ideas and things that are coming. And what kind of skills, and maybe an example might be, well, your language skills. You need to learn how to communicate, how to write, how to express yourself. But even more than that, any other skills that maybe come to mind that you think are important, that you realize are important?
I think maybe for me it would be we're 40 people and we're all very different. So getting along with people, it's not hard for me, but definitely getting to know how different people's personalities are and how you can tackle a thing with them, and then how to react when they're saying something, and how to I don't know.
Well, in some ways, it's maybe how to work in groups, group dynamics, and you may want certain things, but you have to do other things, or there's a certain structure to your world here, your life, and then while most of it can be fun and exciting, there are going to be frustrations. Either the way people are responding. So I think what I'm going to say you're speaking to is the importance of how to work with different people, and
Exactly. That's what I want.
Yeah, people that have different interests, values, and in this case, they may be relatively homogeneous, but they're also very different. I mean, ultimately, we are in need of how to work together. Anything you might add? Again, what kind of skills do you think this experience is helping you to understand is important?
I think it's good to learn how to live in a different culture from home.
Yeah.
And try new things.
Yeah. So the ability to adapt to a new environment and new cultures, and what are, if you push that a little farther, I mean, what does it take? What are the things, if you had to advise somebody, be this way or not that way, or
Acceptance.
be
Definitely.
yeah,
and to be
open-minded, and be willing to absorb changes, and don't be so, I don't know.
Take some risks.
take some risks, yeah, and you all have. I mean, you've made a decision. This is not easy. The easy thing would be to stay home and just do your normal routine, but you've in fact made that decision to kind of embark on a new exciting challenge. But I mean, coming back to just what you said, you need to learn to work with groups. This is true of any place you're going to do or what you're going to, even if it's in an organization or working across borders. And I think that's the key thing. You're now learning how to work with and introduce yourselves and interact with people from other cultures, as you'll see here, many different people. And what are the skills, again, maybe that you need? You need to be open-minded, you need to be adaptable, flexible. That might be a very critical one, because things aren't going to always go the way you want them. And if you come in with the opposite, you're very rigid and fixed and closed-minded, you will be more frustrated. I often like to say another skill that's valuable is having a sense of humor, being able to laugh at yourself and at what you see. Now, you have to know when to laugh and when not to. You don't want to laugh when it's inappropriate. But what I mean by that is mostly that, you know, you have to go, it helps you kind of go with the flow and be able to not just laugh at other things, particularly laugh at yourself, because you might think things and then you realize, gosh, maybe I have to rethink to that. That's in fact what I'm really, saying is so critical. And I work with a lot of students who have these experiences of going somewhere else and coming back, and more importantly, in helping prepare the generation of students that are going to move on and take on, new identities, new lives, new responsibilities. You need those set of skills. We might call them sort of intercultural skills on some level, cross-cultural skills that you can use. And on that note, I guess what I'm curious is, what are some strategies that you use when you are coming to a new place or inviting? I mean, are there things that you're doing, either by observing or by researching or learning about? I mean, you made the decision to come here. Did you do any background research? Talk to people?
Google.
You did some Google search just a quick, okay. Where is it on the map? Beyond that, did you prepare yourself in any other way? I mean, thinking about what you might need to know to do, or?
I guess I prepared myself mentally for the new culture and
more specifically, I mean, you said to yourself, look, I'm
gonna be open-minded and I'm gonna do this like a fresh start.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it takes. You have to make a conscious effort, because if you're not thinking about that, you might then stumble and have some problems, right? And I go back to this question: what strategies? I mean, again, it could be from as simple as just Googling to get information, and frankly, I think it's important anytime you're doing that to learn something about where you're going, what you're doing, and even something as simple as language. Like, you've studied language, but as you're learning now, language is a very critical window into people and opening in doors. Tell us a little bit about any, things that you've been learning about language that are different from or adding to what you knew before you began this program.
Well, the Hawaiian language, I thought everybody could speak it, but we learned that it was only about 10%. Is that right?
That have some knowledge, yes.
Yeah.
And yet it's not as widely spoken, but it's a very good point. It is the indigenous language of the native population, but while it is used in certain pockets and areas, in fact, the main language continues to be for us English, of course. Now, having said that, though, just like any place, you do need to understand some of that language, at least some basics about it, and a window into language, particularly in something like Hawaiian language, tells you a lot about people and the values and how they describe things, how they, identify things. And again, this is true of many different languages. Maybe out of curiosity, all of you have obviously excellent language skills in English and in your native tongue. Other languages that you might speak, have you studied any others?
Studied some Spanish.
French and Spanish. And those would come maybe more middle school or high school, kind of a little bit later?
Our gymnasium.
Middle school
Is
for
that
me.
Okay.
Yeah, you started in gymnasium.
Yeah.
With Spanish, yeah.
And then we learn a little bit of German in Denmark. I don't know, do you have that in Sweden?
No.
Not so much. This is fascinating because, again, one of the things that's critical about, as all of you as Europeans, is that you live in a world with many neighbors that speak different languages. And while English can be the lingua franca that connects you, nevertheless, learning some other languages can give you a window into those cultures in a way that, you know, it's just, you can't otherwise. Well, we'll take one last break here. I'll come back in just a moment. I'm Carlos Juarez. This is the Global Connections show in the ThinkTech Hawaii series, and we're joined by 3 Scandinavians who've come all the way from their home countries in Denmark and Sweden to join us here in a great conversation to learn about what they're doing here. We'll come back in just a moment. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? You feeling good? Are you feeling lucky? ThinkTech Hawaii, it puts a bubble in my bender. If you don't feel good, that's your fault. Now that's live TV, folks.
And welcome. We're back. We're live, and we're ThinkTech. This is Global Connections in the ThinkTech series, and I'm Carlos Juarez, your host. We're joined today by Sophie, Simone, and Elin, who've come to us from Denmark and Sweden, part of an HPU Danish Study Center, even though we've got a few Swedes thrown in there for good measure. But it is, in fact, an initiative that's quite interesting because of the growing number of groups of students like yourselves who are coming here, part of a cultural studies program where you're learning about culture and language and essentially helping refine some of your skills. And while much of the program is focused on that, it can't all be. You need to have some fun. You need to have also some immersion in the community and opportunities to learn about our home here. Tell me a little bit about what else is included in your program. While you have some, daily workshops and sort of the work, if you will, you also have some other fun activities. Tell us a little bit. What do you have on your agenda?
Well, I think all of us are gonna skydive.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Skydive.
Jumping out of planes.
Yeah.
Wow.
9th of November.
And
So
your
it's,
parents, doesn't matter. You'll send them a postcard or
Yeah.
something.
My mom is
Okay.
not happy, but
Oh.
she can't do anything. So.
She's not here. Gosh, so skydiving and
Scuba diving,
scuba
some
diving.
of us.
So you go up, you go down.
Yeah. It should be so beautiful here to scuba dive.
And we're going to learn surfing.
Yeah,
Swim with
definitely.
dolphins.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We also have a week off. Then I think many of us have planned to go visit some of the other islands. I really want to go to the Big Island to see the volcano
Excellent. Okay, very good.
and the lava.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the active volcano. It's been
Yeah, exactly.
active for more than 30 years now, about 30 years.
Yeah.
Well, it's important to do that, and again, I say that because not only is it fun, which it is, but it kind of helps really to immerse you more in understanding this place, the culture, the society, the people, and not only that, but the beautiful natural environment that we have. And it's a playground that, I'm delighted to learn that you're going to be taking advantage of. And the other thing, I think more generally, and we were just talking about, again, what kind of skills, what kind of takeaways that you will have, because I think this experience will, help you not just having some good memories, but to actually become, in some ways, more well-rounded and more grounded. You'll have, some, important skills that are going to help you in anything you do in life. We just discussed, some of those. The other is that basically it gives you, a better sense of yourselves, right? And I'm curious, when you think of, you're now kind of in the middle of this program, you've got some time still ahead of you, but by now it has surely had some impact on you. You're already probably thinking, changes and what next. Maybe if you could share with us, what else is on your, as you look to the future, what are some other interests that you might have? What do you have on your plans if you have to, I don't know, if you're asked, what are you going to be doing in your near future? Anything you can share there?
I think I'm gonna keep studying some economics, and then I actually have no idea what I'm gonna work
So
with.
you have the world is open
Yeah.
to you. Then that's okay. Yeah. Anything you could share?
I think journalism.
Mhm.
But it's hard to get into the school in Denmark. It's like a third of who
Apply.
seek, who apply.
And while you're here, I mean, maybe on that, I'm curious because you obviously, in different ways, you have ways of trying to record your story or keep a record of some journal. Are some of you doing anything like that, keeping, either notes or anything, or is it too busy to stop and do that?
I have a diary.
Okay, so you're
but it's hard to find time to write in it because there's always something going on.
Yeah.
I take a lot of pictures, so that's kind of my diary to remember what I did and stuff like that.
Me and my friend have like a private blog where we just write something about what we did, and then we're gonna read it later, so we remember everything.
No, it's quite valuable, and you don't realize it. I can just tell you in the time you have left, it would be good to try and squeeze in a little time because you can go back to those notes and thoughts, and kind of helps you rethink what you were thinking at that time, and just it's a way of keeping some memory of it alive. And again, back to this idea that the world you're growing up in now is so different from the past, that you have simple tools, simple technologies that allow you to record things, to make a story, to share it with other people. As we're doing here with our show, within hours you'll be able to send it back home, and tomorrow your parents can wake up and see you on YouTube. Quite interesting. I'm very excited again to just learn about this story because you've come a long way. I commend you for taking the initiative and sort of being adventurous to do this. And it is one of those things that I think it's fair to say once you've seen the world, you want to kind of see more of it. You're never quite the same person. And maybe I would ask, as you think back of your own either siblings or close friends or family, not everybody does what you've done, and and yet they are still part of you. And how would they describe you? Are you the adventurous type, the one that decided to go so far? Little risk taker?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think definitely with my friends because I'm one of the only one who are going to
make
do
it. Yeah. And in your case, I mean, you come from a more, maybe we could say, remote or more provincial area of this. You're not from the big city that she comes from, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bigger move for you just to trek and make this long journey, right?
No, I actually think it's the same.
Okay.
In Denmark, no matter where you're from. Yeah.
She begs to differ here. She's saying.
Maybe it's more popular up in the north. I don't know. To go
just
to
go out
another
and
country.
adventure.
Almost all of my friends has been.
Yeah. Very good.
I don't know.
Yeah, excellent. Well, as we continue and we're finished shortly. I mean, I guess I want to think. Ask you to reflect a little bit on what you've seen so far and maybe what you hope to see. You've seen some things that have confirmed what you were hoping to see. I mean, we've discussed a little bit about that. Are there things that have surprised you in any way, things that you did not expect? Anything you could reflect on?
That I can't tell whether or not it's a tourist or
a local person.
A local person walking on the street.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Something that surprised me was when you're gonna walk across the street, you need to wait for the green light so you don't get a ticket. In Sweden, it's like everyone just walking.
So you have those rules, but nobody quite stops.
Yeah.
And here it is good advice, and you should take it because
it's like everyone wait until it's the green man.
Not in New York City, though. I know if you were there, you just keep moving the flow.
We did.
In fact, if you stop, people bump into you and ask you get out of the way. And anything that's surprised you and what you've seen?
I don't really know it. Maybe that it's so beautiful, that it's the dream-like picture of Hawaii, that it's the same here, like in Waikiki Beach.
Okay. And, we certainly will remind you, and you'll be able to see more of it. There, this thing that you described, that bubble of Waikiki, is often just one piece, and it's, while it's an important part of who we are and our economy, it is not the entire picture, and it's important as you have enough time here to see more and to travel and see other areas, because you'll be able to appreciate more of the local culture that we have. And perhaps by the time you finish, I think you'll be better at distinguishing who the tourists are and who the locals are.
I think so too.
It is true. I mean, like any place you go or you live or you're from, you have that ability. You know who your immediate peers are, and you can usually tell. This is true of most places, who the outsiders are. But it is true. You come to a place, and this is probably what stands out for you, coming from your respective places, that this is such a diverse, plural society. There are people that look different and come with different heritage, traditions, languages. Makes it both exciting and maybe confusing because you're not sure who's from here or who's not. But I think that same reality of all the mixture of cultures is part of what helps to foster this relatively open and friendly society. It's a very welcoming place. We've always had a tradition here of welcoming people, and while you come to us now in the early 21st century, some of your own descendants came here, particularly Norwegians. They came here as whalers, and they were part of a global network of fishermen. And each of you have representatives here that represent Denmark and Sweden. In case you lose your passport or you get stuck in prison or something, there's somebody here to help you out. We know that's not going to happen. But main thing to say is that you are coming to us as part of again this globalized world that we are part of, connecting, and you will have some great we hope some great stories to share when you get back home, and otherwise we hope that it's a connection that doesn't die, that you'll have opportunities to return and perhaps share more, and perhaps while you're here persuade some others by opening up connections that can come and visit your place. I've shared with you before that I've been very fortunate to visit both Denmark and Sweden on many occasions, and I love to visit them, but I love to get back on the plane and come back home. So just like you're happy here and you'll enjoy it, I know when that time comes you'll head back home, you'll be looking for your bread, what was the name of this one? And then you'll look for your meatballs back in Sweden. They'll be there waiting, and yet I'm very excited because I think you are part of a new generation that is much more mobile and has the opportunities that I think our new world allows us to connect us physically and really, because we can get on Skype, we can get on the internet, and that happens of course every day, but it doesn't replace the need for you to get into the places and come as you've done here. So I'm very glad to see that. Well, I think we're going to close that our great conversation we've had. I've been delighted to learn more about you and what you're doing, and this interesting program here, basically part of a Danish study center that we've been hosting now at Hawaii Pacific University, hosting groups of Danish and Swedish students that come to us from Scandinavia, part of the Pacific Crossroads Program. And I'm going to close on that. I'm just delighted to be joined today by Sophie, Elin, and Simone from Denmark, Sweden, and Denmark, and coming to us from far away, but hopefully taking back with you a little bit of that aloha spirit that you've been able to find here. On that, I'm going to close, and we're out of time. We're going to have to wrap it up here. I'm Carlos Juarez. This is Global Connections in the ThinkTech radio series. We've been talking again with some students coming to us from Scandanavia, and I want to thank all of you for joining us too as well. Thank many who made this show possible, our production manager Ian Montana, communications director Chrissy Goffigan, and of course Jay Fidel, who helps make it all possible and bring it together. I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us and for listening, and ThinkTech will be back again next week, as we always are here. Your next show in the ThinkTech series will follow, so please stay tuned. If you'd like to get our daily emails or social media program advisories, click the link on thinktechhawaii.com. And if you'd like to be a guest or a sponsor or an underwriter here for ThinkTech, contact Jay at thinktechhawaii.com. Thank you so much, and remember that we broadcast live here every day at 2 and at 4, all weekdays. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.com and Spreaker.com, and if you'd like links to any of those, thinktechhawaii.com. Go there and make sure you look at our Facebook page and tell them that you like us. And of course, I'll see you here next week for the next installment of Global Connections. Aloha.